Hello everyone and welcome to the Sideline, the place where you get all the highlights for your favorite South Florida teams. My name is Kenneth Bueno.
And I'm Alfredo Benegas, and the Sideline starts now.
South Florida will have two of its universities in contention for the national championship when the Final Four tips off for the men's NCAA basketball tournament in Houston on Saturday. Florida Atlantic and Miami will make their first Final Four appearances ever, and there's a possibility of an all-Florida final on April 3rd.
Flying high first are the Owls out of Boca Raton, where FAU pulled out in a strut against the Kansas State Wildcats squad in the Elite Eight. Despite 22 turnovers and 30 points from K-State guard Marquise Noel, the Owls survived and advanced with the final score of Owls 79, Wildcats 76. FAU will move on to play the 5th seed San Diego State Aztecs.
Then storms in the Miami Hurricanes, taking over the Midwest region in a thriller against the 2-seed Texas Longhorns. Miami started the second half 13 points down, but Jordan Miller's 27 points and coach Jim Laraniega's suffocating defensive strategies helped the Hurricanes get to their first Final Four in program history. Final score of the game was Hurricanes 88, Longhorns 81. Next up for Miami is the 4-seed University of Connecticut Huskies out of the West region.
Things are not looking too good for the Florida Panthers late in the regular season. The Cats are looking for the final spot in the wild card, but it seems to be straying further and further from them. We have our NHL specialist, Tanya Jimenez, with what the Panthers can do to come back. Tanya, the Panthers seem to be sliding a little bit. What can they do to get back on track?
With 4 straight losses, the Florida Panthers' playoff chances are looking that much slimmer. Even with defenseman Gustav Forsling's 2 goals and goaltender Bobrovsky's 21 saves, Monday night's game against the Ottawa Senators ended with a disheartening loss. The Panthers outshot the Senators 28-15, but outshooting the opponents isn't enough. The puck needs to find the back of the net, especially with special teams on the ice. 3 out of 5 Senator goals were off power plays, where the Cats were 0 for 4. 3 points are keeping the Panthers out of contention, with the New York Islanders and the Pittsburgh Penguins currently holding the East's wildcard positions. Florida will continue their Canadian turn with intentions to claw their way back to the playoffs.
Tennis fans from all over the world have come to the Hard Rock Stadium for the Miami Open. It's been an exciting tournament, and we have our own Carlton Gillespie to tell us what's happened so far. Carlton, tell us what's going on in Hard Rock Stadium this week.
Thanks, Alfredo. The best players in the world are at the Miami Open this week. Tennis's best are at the Hard Rock Stadium, and the only sporting event where getting a backhanded compliment is actually a good thing. The early rounds are over, and there are great matchups on both the men's and women's sides. On the top half of the men's draw, new world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz is staying hot after winning in California earlier this month at Indian Wells. He looks primed to repeat his Miami Open championship, but to make it to the finals this year, he'll have to overcome potential quarterfinal matchups against number 1 American Taylor Fritz and a possible rematch of last year's Miami Open final against Jan Sinner. The bottom half of the draw features world number 3 Stefanos Tsitsipas and the story of the tournament so far in American Christopher Eubanks. While confidence is low for most American banks at the moment, Eubanks is on a miraculous run into the round of 16. The unheralded 26-year-old defeated world number 20 Borna Coric and has secured a top 100 ranking by defeating Gregory Bieri in the round of 32. On the women's side of the bracket, number 1 American Jessica Pegula is looking to make a statement after flaming out in the quarterfinals of the Australian Open for the 3rd straight year. She's on track to meet last year's Wimbledon champion Arna Rabinka in the semis. The Kazakhstani is on an excellent 12-match unbeaten run since winning at Indian Wells earlier this month. The finals on Sunday represent the end of the hardcourt season for tennis, as after this, preparations for the red clay of Roland Garros begin before the French Open this May. Now back to the desk, where the score of their tennis game is always love, love.
The Heat are currently flirting between play-in and playoff territory as the postseason is just around the corner. We will turn to our Heat panel to give their takes on just how the Heat can pull off a playoff spot.
After an embarrassing loss to the Brooklyn Nets on Saturday, the Heat have found themselves in the most treacherous position. They're right in the 7th seed and in the play-in spot. Now I'm joined with my panel today with Anthony, Zeth, and Anthony, and we're going to figure out what exactly the Heat need to do to get out of this spot. Anthony, I'll toss it to you.
Yeah, Tyler, I think it starts with their depth, right? Because if you look at the stats, post-All-Star break, their offense, in terms of the rating and just consistency, has risen, but I think those numbers are a little misleading. in the sense that, yes, Jimmy Butler is doing what he's done at the second half of every season. He has propelled his game. He's averaging 28 points per game. I think Tyler Hero has become a bona fide 20-point-per-game scorer. I think Bam is taking another leap. That's why he's an all-star this year. But what is 4 through 9 doing? What is 4 through 10? And that matters late into the season, late into the playoffs, when teams are tightening their rotation, right? And you have to put out your best 9 to 8 guys. That's what matters, and I don't think Miami's 4 through 9 compares to any team that's surrounding them in the play-in or the playoffs.
Yeah, their offense is already struggling to score as it is, bottom of the league in points per game. Their bench, 27th in the league in points per game, and their bench is struggling every time they're on the court with a negative 486 plus minus, which is 25th in the league.
Yeah, like all you mentioned, it's just inconsistencies all season. And I think that's going to really affect them come playoff time. You don't know what you're going to get out of them night in and night out. So I just think heading into this last stretch of games, it's going to be really important to see how they come out, because there's a lot of easy teams that they can beat, and there's a lot of hard teams that I think it's going to be a struggle. But I just want to see how they look, see how their form coming into playoff time.
I think their main liability starts at the 4. And you look at Kevin Love, and yes, he did add significant height to the team, but however, he's become older. He's lost his agility, he's lost his athleticism, and I think that becomes a big liability when you're facing in the Eastern Conference, especially, right? Where you look at the top 3 teams, where if they do make it out of the play-in, right, you have the Bucks with Giannis, you have the Sixers with Embiid, right, and you have Boston with Tatum and Brown, all big dominant wings, right? And I know that he will be a liability. And if you look at, for example, when teams go smaller too, right? And it isn't only their height. When teams go smaller, like Philly a few weeks ago, they stretch him out, they run pick and roll, and he cannot catch up, especially in a Miami offense that's filled with zones, right? And there's constant movement.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kevin Love has never really been that much of a defensive asset, but he's older now, and the Heat have a lot of problems that they have to develop. But all we can say right now is, Heat, please do better.
That's all the time we have for today. I'm Alfredo Benegas.
And I'm Kenneth Bueno. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week on The Sideline.